Alrighty, gang.
There he is.
Welcome back to Nopes and Opes. The OG crew is here. Me, Hylan, and good old Lance. He made an appearance for this episode, mostly because this will be our 30th episode ever to be released.
That's incredible.
It's insane.
I mean, I've mentioned it in the other episodes, but I don't know how we made it here.
Yeah.
Like, congrats. Like,
Yeah.
well done, buddy. I mean, I wish that people really honestly knew how much work Rowan has put into this whole process, because it really, really is a lot and deserves quite a bit of accolades. But I don't think anyone really is going to have any idea. But
That's right.
yeah, just know that you're appreciated. All the work is appreciated. And 30 episodes is no joke.
Yeah. And to celebrate our 30 episodes, we decided to both wear funny t-shirts. I'm wearing a Larry David t-shirt. And Hylan, why don't you tell the people about your glorious shirt?
Yeah, mine's not funny in any way. I mean, it's like, really, you should
respect it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of danger, actually. For anyone that has or knows about the power of the 3 Wolf Moon t-shirt, yeah, like,
it's a force to be reckoned with.
Enough said.
Yeah.
But if you don't know, or if you've not somehow heard of just the magic, the just kind of otherworldly mysticism and just conjuring greatness that is inherent in these t-shirts themselves, I would strongly suggest just going to 3 Wolf Moon t-shirt review on Amazon and just reading some of the testimonials and really getting a sense of what this shirt can kind of bring to your own personal experience.
And you had even said that the idea from the book came after you'd received the shirt and you looked into the eyes of the wolves and it spoke to you.
Well, I mean, I can't tell you how many ideas have come from the power of the 3 Wolf Moon t-shirt, but yeah, I mean, it's I feel a little bit badly even talking about it, like trying to capture the magicality, because the words are not enough.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's not a laughing matter. It's serious.
I definitely don't want to mess around with the power of the 3 Wolf Moon t-shirt, but yeah, it's just, I mean, seriously, it's just awesome. And I mean, you can witness it for yourself. I mean, you'll see how the episode goes, and I think the power will come through.
And that's why Lance is here. He knows to respect
the draw. Yeah.
Yeah. He felt it and was like, I should make
Cats
make an appearance.
come running, women come running.
Yeah.
Like llamas come running sometimes. I mean, you really never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to be prepared for everything. And that's really kind of the magic of the 3 Wolf Moon t-shirt, is no matter what happens, somehow you're just going to rise above and just kind of ride the wave.
Yeah.
And it's just, yeah, I mean, I mean, honestly, like if I had the power within me, I would somehow like have a 3 Wolf Moon t-shirt shipped out to all the subscribers. And just so that, well, 1, we could make the world a better place. And then 2, just everybody just kind of spread the wealth.
Well, we shouldn't say that lightly. One of the greatest responsibilities you can take in this life is taking on the power of the 3 Wolf Moon t-shirt.
Yeah.
You know, we talk about, cleaning up your backyard and taking responsibility, but owning one of those t-shirts, it's another level.
Yeah. I'm just gonna stop it there, man. I mean, don't even get me started. Like, I could expound for days on the 3 Wolf Moon t-shirt, but yeah, really just go out and get your own, experience it, just live life to the fullest.
If you want to level up in life, buy this t-shirt.
No, not just one. I mean, if you want to level up like hundreds of thousands of levels at like one step.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy. And just be prepared. It's gonna be a lot. It's gonna be
I mean, the best advice is just be prepared to be totally unprepared for what this shirt.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about transition periods on the podcast, but when you get the 3 Wolf Moon t-shirt, it's probably the biggest transition period that you can have. Don't take our laughter for, I mean, be cautious. This is a serious matter.
No, oh man. Yeah. Serious. It's pretty awesome. No, actually, this is one of my favorite t-shirts to wear though. Actually, a funny story though. One of my favorite places to go is Bentonville, Arkansas.
Yeah.
Which is really funny to say, but Bentonville is the home of Walmart, and Walmart has made a bunch of just unbelievable mountain bike trails. Like if anyone is listening to this or watching, if you're interested in mountain biking, or if you're just interested in really cool videos, look up anything about Bentonville, Arkansas. It's incredible. Mm-hmm. But so we go down there with my friend Jeffrey and his family over spring break. I always meet him down like at the end of spring break, and we spend a day and a half riding. And I was sitting actually outside the Bentonville Walmart, the original Walmart, the one that began the whole Walmart dynasty. And I'm sitting on a bench, and all of a sudden these kids, like probably 15, 16 years old, come flying past on their bikes. And I mean, I don't even know. Like, I mean, this kind of shows the power of the Three Wolf Moon t-shirt, but I don't even know how this kid had the ability to see the t-shirt and like what I was wearing. Cause I was kind of like just sitting there on the bench, like kind of hunched over, whatever. And he's just cruising past. And by the time he said it to me, he was already probably 20 yards past.
Yeah.
But he's like, cool t-shirt, bro. And I was just like, what? Like, how'd that kid even see that, man?
Well, it's because when you wear it, you essentially glow. Like, if you want to be the brightest in the room, put that t-shirt on.
It was so funny. And like my friend's sons like are like, what's he talking about? And I was like, Three Wolf Moon t-shirt.
Yeah.
And so then the rest of the weekend, man, like the kids are just like, wow, the shirt is really powerful, man. I'm like, yeah. Like, I think somebody else said we were on the trails, and somebody else mentioned the magic and the power of the Three Wolf Moon t-shirt. And it's just, you don't know what it's going to bring.
And these, I mean, it's kind of resembling what's going on right now. We have three wolves here ourselves.
Yeah.
And my head's kind of shaped like the moon, so maybe that adds into it as well. So,
yeah. I mean, a real life living Three Wolf Moon t-shirt in IRL.
Yeah, in video form. It's pretty magical.
In the whatever. I can't figure that out. All right.
But other than these awesome t-shirts and our stories, today, I don't know why, we started off pretty jovial, but I think we're going to talk about kind of a serious topic in a way.
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to necessarily be serious, but I think it deserves something to think about. It's just an interesting, for me, I mean, this is just something that I've come to like within the last couple of months, right? Like it's not something that has always been clearly apparent to me. And I think it's kind of changing the way that I deal with others and myself too, right? But I think it's worth kind of just thinking about and just kind of exploring and kind of seeing like, where does it take it? And if I'm totally wrong, right? Yeah. I mean, I could be totally off base, and maybe we'll get to a totally different conclusion by the end. But I like in my work right now, during this past week, we've kind of been talking about like depression and anxiety and just kind of feeling overwhelmed by life in general. And
to kind of paint a context, not to give too much away, but you are working with younger adults.
Yeah.
Teenagers.
At this point, like for the past couple of years, it's all been like middle school, high school.
Okay. So you're working with middle school, high schoolers, and that's kind of like the conversations you're having recently. So
yeah. And I mean, honestly, the biggest issue is anxiety and just depression and just this feeling of being overwhelmed, right? Just life's too much. I can't handle it. I don't have the skills. I don't know what to do. Like it's hard to get up, whatever, But I mean, that's huge, right?
Yeah.
If that's the way you're feeling, like that is not fun and that can be debilitating. And so I spend a fair amount of time just trying to think about like, what are some ways that I can help kids and people in general, myself included, right? Like I go through periods where it's like, dang, it's hard to get out of bed or whatever it is, right? And so I just think it's important in that context, right? For all of us are going to have down days. All of us are going to feel anxious for sure, right? Yeah. And you have your own.
Oh yeah, I mean, when the last few months I was in Minnesota, I don't like using the word depression very sparingly because it's.
I don't use it for myself.
It's kind of diagnosed. There's different I don't know if there's necessarily different levels, but it's a serious matter.
There's definitely, like, even within the diagnostic manual itself,
Yeah.
there are there's differing labels of depression and then differing levels. Absolutely.
But I myself have had my own bouts of depression and whatnot. Like I was on antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication for a while when I was in Chicago and everything. So like I have been diagnosed with depression. I don't know if it's necessarily to the point where it's like ongoing depression like the rest of your life, but I think I had a phase or a time where it was very apparent. And now I feel in a much better headspace and feel very good. But like anyone, good days and bad days. Some days I'm really hard on myself, or the world seems a little darker, and then some days it's seems a little brighter.
Well, and I think one thing that's interesting for me, and I think that is shocking to people in the sense that I hide it very, very well, but in a general sense, and again, this is personal, right? Like you don't, the way that I look at things isn't necessarily indicative of how others might perceive it, but I like to portray myself as very calm, very just like, whatever, just kind of go with the flow.
Yeah.
But like inside, like I would consider myself pretty anxious and like always kind of thinking things through and always kind of a little bit worried, like, like what's going to happen? Like, how can I prepare myself for what's in the future? And I'm always kind of predicting what's going to happen and how I can deal with it and how I can handle it. And just like, in a sense, maybe not anxious, but maybe like over analytical, right? Like thinking a lot. Like,
Yeah,
I think a lot.
I can feel that as well.
Yeah. And like in that sense, you do feel a little bit of anxiety because you don't know what's going to happen, right? So there's a fair amount of anxiety within myself that I try to hide a lot. And so in a sense, like I'm coming to these ideas, I'm coming to these kind of realizations just from looking at my own experiences and my own kind of thought processes and things like that. But yeah, so basically in speaking with students, in looking at myself and kind of looking at the world around me, this past week I've been talking with a student and like pretty in depth, right? We've been trying to get to some like there's a fair amount of trauma and things that this person is dealing with, and there's a lot going on inside the head and a lot of things that are just always having to be dealt with. And so there's a fair amount of anxiety and there's a fair amount of kind of helplessness sometimes. Yeah. And there is depression and things like that. And we've been talking a little bit, and one of the things like that we've kind of come to the conclusion, and this is agreed by both of us, which is kind of shocking because we both are like, is that real? Like that, is that really how we feel? And like we thought about it and talked about it and we're like, yeah, but
he's referring to him and the student, by the way, in case that wasn't clear.
Yeah. And the idea is pretty simple, but in order to feel depression, in order to be anxious, we actually need like time and energy and like mind power, like towards that end. Like we almost have to make ourselves anxious, right? Like if like the thing that the kind of realization that we've kind of come to is if we can occupy our brains in a healthy way, or like doing things that are fun or things that don't cause us any anxiety or whatever, or like we've been doing some sewing and we've been doing some like puzzle games and we've been playing chess and just like we've been outside just enjoying nature and reading things. And as long as our brain is occupied in a positive, healthy manner, our brains really aren't as sophisticated to be happy and be anxious at the same time.
Yeah.
Right. So if we can, so the realization, excuse me, the realization is pretty simple, but like it's just the fact that you need, like you expend energy making yourself anxious.
Yeah.
You have to kind of like almost want to be anxious. Is that weird?
No, it's not weird. I mean, it's almost, I think I get the idea of wanting to be anxious. I just don't think it's a conscious thing. I think it's kind of like a reaction of the
No, it's
body.
not. Yeah, that's a bad
But I
phrase.
get what you're trying to say. Like, I don't think you were implying that anyone wants to be depressed or anxious.
No.
Nobody wants that. It's clearly like a response to external stimuli or internal stimuli that causes you to have that reaction. But I'll speak for my specific instance. So you talk about, having to, if you occupy your brain, then it is much harder to feel those symptoms.
Yeah.
When I was the most depressed, I was doing the least with my life.
Yeah.
I had no friend groups.
Yeah.
I never really went out. My job was online and it was remote, and like it really didn't take that much actual focus into it. So it created all of this time to think and mold over things, and it just created this super negative space.
It's a vicious,
And my I just had like such a problem with it, and even my partner at the time, my past relationship, like they had the exact same thing. Like they also were in a state where like they didn't really have anything going on, and so we both really suffered because it was like we don't have things that are occupying our space in our mind to not feel this way. Like what starts to happen is you start to feel it, and then it just keeps getting worse.
Yeah.
And then you spend so much energy feeling depressed that you don't want to do anything else because you're so exhausted.
Yeah, you don't have the energy to kind of go out and create the situations that can create the positive.
Yeah. And the longer I kind of think of it like the longer you stay in the depression, not to say like you can just get out of it easy. Like I'm not trying to say that in any way possible. But the longer.
Like I think we should point out, like we're not trying to diminish, like if somebody's going through depression or things like that, like my intention, and again, like hopefully people realize our intentions are always, I think you and I both, our intentions are always the best, right? If we say something or like kind of imply something, that's
we're not trying to simplify this or make it seem like this is a light. I know we started off light, but this is kind of how we handle things. Like
sometimes it gets so heavy.
Yeah, we gotta approach it.
We gotta break this up.
And I think it's safe to say both you and I have experienced depression.
Absolutely.
So we're coming from our own standpoint.
Yeah.
We're not saying this applies to everyone, but for me and for you.
Well, and just trying to be helpful, right? Yeah. If this works for you, excellent. Yeah. Right. If it's not, and you need more help, or you need to go to a different level or different types of support, whatever, please, by all means, like do what's best for you.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm just looking at it from my experience and like, hey, this is the conclusion that we came to. And it seemed to work for both me and my friend. And maybe it will be the same for others. And to me, it's so simple. So if it works, awesome. If not, then please seek out other avenues.
Absolutely. And so what I was kind of starting to get to was when I was in that depressive state, I think the longer you're in the depressive state, like the longer you're with the depression, the harder it is to want to do anything. Right?
Absolutely.
Like at first, you might still try and go out and do stuff, but the longer you're feeling this sense of depression, the more you start to pull away from people that you love and care about and that care about you. Like I wouldn't call my family. Like I talk to Emmett almost every single day now.
Yeah.
When I was depressed, I'd talk to him like once a month.
Well, I think that statement alone right there, like if you really think about it, like kind of supports the idea that it takes energy to be in that state.
Yeah.
Right. It takes energy, but it also like sucks energy away, and it doesn't allow you to replace the energy in a good way. Right. And so it's really it's really a pretty vicious cycle, right? It's like,
well, because one thing we talk about being active is I think in the pursuit of being active and trying to do things that either excite you or would be fun, and in a safe way. I'm not saying you're doing things that are like really scary that will increase your anxiety or increase the signs of depression. I'm saying like things you might think are fun, like you have friend groups and going out. In the process of expounding that energy and doing that activity, I actually gain more from it. Whereas when you're in the depressive state, you're using the energy to feel depression, and it's depleting you,
Mm.
and it just keeps depleting you. Like you never get anything back.
Oh, wow.
You
Yeah.
know, like it just keeps taking and taking and taking and taking.
It almost like creates a black. Like
exactly.
where new positive energy can't come.
Yeah.
And it just creates like.
And even if there is something positive, it's not enough because of how deep the well goes to get you to feel like, oh, like, you know what? I can keep going, or I can keep doing this thing, or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And this is something that, it took a long time to kind of start to realize and figure out. Because like what happened with me with my depression was it started and I didn't really know it was happening, right? Like I wasn't really aware that it was kind of taking place. And then it just started to seep into parts of my life. And then,
don't you think that's everybody, or
probably
it's maybe, yeah, it's unique.
Maybe,
it's an individual experience.
And as time went on, I started to just like really not be social. I really just stayed inside, became extremely codependent in my relationship. And, all of these things started to happen. And not until maybe like a year or two into it did I start to be like, something's up. Like I gotta change this. This is bad. Like this is not good for me. How can I start to figure things out? And through just, a long, tedious process of just trying to do things for myself and to kind of show up for myself, did it help? But honestly, not until I like read the book did I. And I'm not trying to say the book is the answer, but for me personally, like that's what got me out of it. So
well, and that I think that's what's cool is it can be anything that can kind of kickstart you out of the process, right? It can be a book, it can be a movie, it can be a TED Talk or whatever it is. But
the fact that someone can inspire you to want to be better for yourself, that can happen in any form of a way. It could be just a random conversation you have with a stranger and you just connect and it just jumpstarts you. So what I was going to say was, with my depression specifically, it was something like I've heard some really serious cases of depression.
Yeah.
Where it's bad. Like it's really bad. It's not something to joke about or, make any comments about. But mine was kind of, it was bad. It was bad. It wasn't good, but it was almost like kind of this subconscious of just like, I just was down and I could never pinpoint that I was depressed.
I think that's sometimes I think that's more nefarious in a way because it's not real clear.
It's hidden in a way.
It's just a nagging little thing, like a weight, like just dragging you down and just making life just a little bit harder. And I think that's even more difficult because you're like, I'm good, but
because I would talk to my parents on the phone and I'd be like, things are good, but they wouldn't be good.
Yeah.
But like it didn't outwardly feel terrible.
Yeah.
Like I think a lot of the ways that depression has been communicated or seen in movies and all this stuff is the extremes of it, right?
Yeah.
And I think, as we've kind of talked about, there are so many different levels of depression,
Yeah.
all very serious, mind you. But, there's ones where people are bedridden. They can't even get out of bed. I was able to get out of bed, but everything I did in my life, it like no real joy was brought into it. Like I would be able to kind of like survive through it, if you will.
Yeah.
But it just was kind of like I just could never feel like really good
just
or
laborious.
feel that life
like
force.
Life is just heavy.
Yeah. And so it was something that, I kind of, now that I think back on it, it was kind of like a 3-year thing of just that kind of constantly.
Yeah.
So, and now, thankfully, I feel like I am out of that and I feel very good and feel a lot better. I do a lot of things to stay active. Like I go out with my friends. I do a podcast. I see Highland. I have all these communications and these activities that I do to try and essentially show up for myself, because I know now that if I don't do these things for myself, I will get sad, I will get depressed, and I will fall back into that state. And part of it is that I've been a lazy person in my past. Like my family always said I was lazy and all this stuff. And I'll admit it. There are things that I lacked and never really took accountability for or responsibility. And now I just realize, like, one side is like, oh, I can be lazy and relax, but I'll eventually get really upset.
Yeah.
So now I'm like, no, I got to do the work so I can it's kind of crazy to think that you actually have to work to be happy.
Yeah, I think that's a really hard concept for people to understand and like to accept.
No,
Right? I should just be happy, right? If I buy this car, if I buy this blouse, if I buy this, if I take this trip, whatever it is, right?
Yeah, like day to day, I should just feel happy.
It's like, nope, not the way it works.
And I don't know. What do you think? Do you think that you actively have to work to be happy? What's kind of your thoughts on that?
I don't swear much, as you know.
No.
But I think you have to work your ass off. I mean, and that's a swear word to me.
Yeah.
But I would like to say like 4 or 5 expletives in a row right now. It's freaking brutal, man. You have to work constantly.
No.
Like it is a constant grind, man. You constantly have to be aware of what you're thinking, what you're feeling, where you're at, what you're like, how other people are affecting you, what kind of energy you're putting into the world. It's a constant battle.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's never for free. Right. And it's a constant perception. Happiness is just perception. It's not internal. It's not like, oh, I eat this cheesecake or whatever my favorite food is and I become happy. Yeah. It's the experience of the cheesecake. Yeah. Right. It's how you say like, oh, I worked really hard to afford this and I'm with my friend and I'm having a great time. And like the way that your mind is perceiving the whole experience is what creates the release of dopamine. It's the release of all the positive, serotonin and everything that flows through your body. But it's totally perception, and perception is always a choice. Yep. You can choose to perceive things how you wish, and it's never a guarantee. Absolutely not. I mean, like the people, like every single person knows somebody that they look up to, and they say they have everything, and they're miserable.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How's that possible? It's possible because they look at their situation and they don't perceive themselves as having all that they need. Yeah. Yep. So, yeah. And then there's people that have nothing. Like some of the happiest people that I ever met in my life. And I hate the word happy. Like it's so subjective and it's not really a great descriptive term in any way. But like these, like they just exuded joy to me. But the people in Tibet were, and they had nothing. Like I've never ever experienced poverty like I have in Tibet. Like the family that we stayed over when we were at Mount Everest, we had to stay at a family's house, and they had one bowl of rice and a few kind of vegetables sprinkled on the rice that they would share between the 3 of them. And when we showed up at their house unexpectedly, they had to give it to us just because that was the way that their religion and teachings. It was kind of just that's what they had to follow. But they, like as a Westerner, I just looked around and I was like, these people have nothing. Like that, there's no reason. And
like how you look at it, you're like, how can you be happy?
They had no iPads, no telephones, no computers, no TV, no movies, no Netflix. Nothing that we deem like, oh my God, I couldn't live without my phone.
Yeah, or whatever it may be.
Or I couldn't live without my car or whatever it is, right? They had nothing, and they just exuded. They had each other. They had a house that they built by mud brick. Yeah. They had their occupation. Their mind was always occupied with kind of just surviving and taking care of their family and loving each other and just and they were absolutely happy. Sorry, Lance.
No, you're fine. Well, that you say that, it actually makes me think of this kind of interesting point that we kind of talk about. So you talk about these people in Tibet. You know, they built and created the happiness on their own. Like it was all their own doing.
It's not even in the past tense. It was continuous. Yeah. Right. They didn't. It's not like, oh, they built the house and it was over. They were constantly working to seal the cracks, but it was just it was a constant continuum of just maintaining, like knowing the priority, right? Mm-hmm. Their priority was their family, each other, like taking care, making sure that everybody was healthy and happy, and
Yeah.
and then just waking up each day, doing what was necessary to do, making sure that everyone was taken care of, making sure that they had a bowl of rice to eat, and going to bed knowing that they loved each other, knowing that they had survived, and it was just amazing because they didn't have the free time to actually kick back and think like, am I happy? Like, do I have everything I need?
Yeah.
Like it was just their minds were always occupied, their bodies were always occupied, and they just lived a very, very simple existence, but it was an existence filled with moments of joy. Like every moment that they perceived, they were content with.
I also would go to say that in their pursuit of, just surviving and doing all these things for themselves, they're actively doing it for themselves. They're not having other people or systems build these things for them.
Yeah.
They have the sense of accomplishment to feel good. Whenever I hear, there's a lot of podcasts out there that always talk about, like, if you're depressed, like, work out, it'll make you feel better, right? And the problem is these guys that talk about it are always like, you gotta work out, you gotta drive yourself, but they don't really get into the ideas of, okay, why? Like, how does it actually help you? And I think, and this is just kind of my own interpretation of it, but it's the sense of accomplishing something that makes you feel better.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you need to go into the gym and lift 600 pounds or get jacked, but going into the gym or going and sitting down to write something or sitting down to paint something, doing that sense of
crocheting, knitting.
Yeah. Accomplishing something for yourself gives you the sense of just progress forward.
Yeah.
And I think that is what, when you hear people talk about lifting, and of course, the guys that have these podcasts are just so aggressive into it. You're I mean, like we've said in the previous, like, you don't have to agree with them, but you can take things from what they say.
Yeah.
And I take that, like, for me, I had like a really rough day the other day. I just was in my head, went to work. Work wasn't great. I just came home and I just was like, ugh. And I was like, okay, I am not in a good headspace. I could just go upstairs and lay down. That will not be good for me. So I was like, I need to show up for myself. I'm going to go downstairs and I'm going to lift. And I'm going to do this because, one, I've talked about wanting to get more fit. It'll help me. It'll make me feel good. It'll make me do some movement. I'll get active. I haven't really been active today. I went down there. I lifted. I did a sauna. I felt much better.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that just because I lifted, I felt better. I think lifting and all those things, it only works for certain people. You need to find what you can accomplish for yourself that makes you feel better.
Well, I think that's one of the most important messages in this podcast and in the book, for me at least, is health, mental health, whatever it is, whatever, spirituality, whatever, it is always going to be individualized, right? What works for me doesn't need to work for you, but you do need to figure out what works for Rowan, right?
No.
Whatever works and it's always going to be individualized for sure. But then my question is, and I think this is a really interesting question because I kind of rebel against, like, when I'm working in the schools, I kind of rebel against everything when I'm working in the schools. So if a school is looking to hire me, sorry, don't pay attention to that. But one of the things that I think a lot about and I worry about is there's a big push for SEL, right? Social emotional learning.
Yep.
And there's all these curriculums and there's like asking kids like every day to check in, like, what am I feeling? What am I thinking? And my question is this, and I have a definite answer and I think everybody knows my answer for sure, but do you think that we are too far inside our heads these days? Have we gone to the extreme, and by being too far and thinking too much, we are creating our own mental health crises?
Yes. I'd like to say a few things about that. Yes, I do. One thing I will say, though, is that it's kind of, and this is going to sound maybe a little far-fetched, but I kind of like where I'm going. It's almost like, so I'll give an example. When I was on the lacrosse team, I was talking with my coach, and there were certain players that respond a certain way to the way we played lacrosse. And with me, he was like, Rowan, I can teach you and coach you everything there possibly is to know about lacrosse. You'll retain it and you'll do well. This guy over here, I can't tell him a single thing. I got to put the ball in a stick and be like, hey, that's the goal. Put the ball in there. And he's a phenomenal player. I think it's kind of the same way with individuals. I think some people can be very in tune with their emotions and they can handle it. But I think some people really can't handle it. And maybe that's just because they haven't had good examples of how to have emotionally intelligent conversations. Because if you think about it, if you take someone that's in a home that might be abusive or a family that does not speak about emotions and really kind of articulates them, right? You take that kid and then you all of a sudden are like, hey, we're going to learn about this stuff. Here are all these lessons of how to think emotionally and like what you should be thinking about. It'll be kind of hard for them to go back into their sphere of influence and talk about those things because their parents might be like, what are you talking about? You know?
Right.
Now, this is a complete example. I could be wrong. Never going to say that I'm like, I know what I'm talking about. But I do think for me personally, I was so in my head trying to kind of diagnose what was going on with me and trying to figure out the emotions and the reasons for these things. And I think at a younger age, it can be really detrimental because you're putting so much time and effort into that. Whereas when, you know, I was growing up, I would just go outside and like play with my friends and just kind of live this ignorant, oblivious life. But a lot of my core fun memories that I've kind of reconnected with my friends and talk about are from that time. And we talk about it with such reverence and so much happiness. And what's fun is now, like, we're all in an age where we are aware of depression and anxiety and whatnot. And what's really helped my friends when we're all together is doing those things we used to do when we were kids, which is just like getting together, having fun, just like chatting, not getting too deep into the weeds of things. Now, it's kind of bullshit for me to say that because I have a podcast where I dive deep into the weeds on emotions and why the things we do, the things we do. But that's because I think that I really do enjoy getting into it. And I think that I can, and I'm not trying to say this in like a cocky way, I think I can handle it. But I think there are others where it's like they can't. Like I have a friend that talks about like therapy and whatnot. And he's like, I don't want to go to therapy because I don't want someone to diagnose me and say that I have a problem with anxiety. Because then if someone tells me that's a professional that I have it, it'll crush me. And he's like, I'm aware of where I'm at right now. I know how to handle it. Like I have my own system to handle the things that are in my life. If I go to someone and they're like, you have this is actually what you need to be doing, it'll mess with his head and he'll struggle. And it's that kind of thing of like, you know, certain people can handle it. Certain people I don't think can.
Well, I guess that was like that kind of addresses the question that I had in my mind because I was going to ask you, like, do you think that we can, or do you believe that we can think ourselves sick?
Yes.
And yeah, I agree with that. But I think your friend is a good example of, I also, like the power of the brain is incredible. And I also think on the opposite end of that spectrum, you can think yourself well.
Yep.
Right? You like, I agree with your friend. Like, I think the same way as your friend. Like, I hate labels. Like, I just rage against labels, right?
Yep.
But that's me personally. But I don't want someone to say, Highland, you have this, because then it automatically puts those limitations on. And it's like, hell no, I'm breaking through all that.
It might make you feel like you don't have the power anymore.
Yeah.
You know?
So, no, oh man, this is.
But what do you let me ask you this. What do you think about the idea of with SEL, people not being able to handle it? Do you think it's something that everyone should be able to handle? Do you think it's catered towards certainly emotionally intelligent people? Because there's different levels of intelligent. I think I'm extremely emotionally intelligent. Doesn't mean I'm super logistically intelligent, but I think because I'm extremely emotionally intelligent, it's something that I can handle or excel at versus someone that might not be as emotionally intelligent.
Well, I will say, first of all, like just to qualify things, I do not know much about the SEL curriculum. I don't know
anything.
I have run away as much as possible. Like when people have brought up, hey, you want to teach SEL? No, I don't. And I don't. But I do know enough about the curriculum to realize that there are some really, really, really good things. And it's very well tailored for age appropriate material. And so they do an excellent job from pre-kindergarten through, high school and maybe even beyond. They have these amazing kind of teaching materials and curriculums that they can follow. And there's, and I mean, I worked with one teacher, I'm just going to say her name. She was one of the most incredible women I've ever met, but her name was Maisie. And she was one of the best SEL teachers I've ever come across. Like, okay. I just was in awe of her. Like, she was incredible. But so I think there's huge amounts of value. And I think with the right teacher, every student can get things from them.
Okay.
So is that the question?
Yeah, that answers the question. And I think I should agree with that. And I'll kind of quantify my perspective. So I didn't, like my high school experience, there was no SEL. But essentially my parents did teach me how to be emotionally intelligent. Like my dad, as you've heard with the emails, is extremely emotionally intelligent.
Yeah.
Like he can break down the emotions that he's feeling and can really articulate. And so from a young age, he was the example along with my mother. And we would sit down, and if I was like really mad about something, we would talk about it.
Yeah.
And so my background really promoted this kind of emotional intelligence and this emotional response. But I will say, with that being said, I have thought myself into really negative situations.
Yeah.
It's kind of this dangerous tone. But
well,
I
think
will
that's
say
the trickiness with depression.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it is mental.
Yeah. But like with anything, I think if you have the right teacher, if you have a good teacher, they can teach you anything and help you through it. So I think my whole assumption on like people can either handle it or not handle it, I think that's incorrect. I think it's probably people were tried to be taught it, but maybe it wasn't through the best individual or shared the best teachings.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that we have to do differently in education is, and I think there's a push towards individualized learning, but not everybody learns the same, right? So everybody's capable of learning the SEL curriculum in some way. Yeah. You just have to figure out how to reach the kids at their level, right?
And that's kind of what I was trying to allude to with that lacrosse analogy. Because like I can retain the coach could tell me everything. Yeah. Like this is where you should be. This is where the defense is going to slide to.
Yeah.
Like I knew all of this stuff. Whereas the other player who was like an All-American, like a stud, if you told him too many things, he got confused.
Yeah.
And then he's in his head and he's overthinking. So it was very much more simplified as an individual.
One of the like if you're in any therapeutic role, one of the number one things that is kind of beaten into your head is meet the client or meet the individual where they're at, right?
Okay.
And that encompasses a lot of different aspects and kind of areas of the human experience. But yeah, you've got to come to their level. If you walk into a therapeutic relationship and you say, okay, like here I am, like you better get yourself here, like good luck. Not going to happen, right? So yeah, so for me, like in dealing with kids, man, like I like it's important for me to bring them up, but at the same time, like I have to make sure that I come to their level so that I can begin to bring them up from where they are.
Gotcha.
If I expect them to be here and then get here, not going to happen.
Yeah. So. I also think just trying to put myself in the shoes of one of those kids, there's nothing more that I hate. Like when I'm really upset about something and someone like is coming in with like fake joy, like it's what there's nothing to be upset about. Everything's great. You're like, fuck off, dude. Like, come on.
Yeah, absolutely.
So to come in at the same level, I think is a much more respectable approach. And clearly it's important for a reason. So,
yep.
Alrighty. Well, any parting words on this conversation?
No, I was a little bit worried. Like I mean, I think we have some tough topics coming up that we would like to discuss, and we're beginning to create some plans. And I think this wasn't necessarily one of the tougher ones, but
It's a tough concept, but the conversation we're having about it is a lighter one.
Yeah, that's what we wanted to come to
exactly
accomplish, and I think we did it. Like, good job, buddy.
Thanks, bud.
But
God, Lance.
But yeah, I hope like this is just kind of a test pilot, and I do think that these ideas and these kind of concepts are important just to kind of think about. And if you listen to this and there's some things that you disagree with or you don't necessarily respond well to or whatever it is, one, please reach out.
No,
right?
I think that's a good thing because we've talked about if you ever are talking to someone and they're like, "This is what you need to do," like I think you should always question what people do. Always question it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So no, I really appreciate it. And like, if you listen to this, I just appreciate you. Cause, hopefully we did challenge things a little bit, but not too much, but, yeah.
And as we've talked about, I mean, this podcast is an exploration and of just life experiences from two different generations. So I talk about my side of depression. Highland shared a little bit about his knowledge working with the students. This is not to educate you on what's right or wrong, but this is just to share our experiences. And if you can gain something positive from it, or if you can take lessons, by all means, that's great. Let us know. But we're not experts. We're still figuring it out. We're trucking along. So.
I still wear a freaking 3-Wolf Moon t-shirt, man.
I mean, but that's the best thing you've done with your life. So
it's one of them. It's at the top.
It's one of them. And then this podcast. Well, on that bombshell, if you want to reach out to us and let us know what you thought or ever share your story, let us know at NopeOpePod@gmail.com. That's NopeOpePod@gmail.com. You can find us on all of the social medias and all of the podcast platforms. Nopes and Opes. We're available on YouTube, Facebook. We have a Facebook group if you want to join it. We have some like exclusive content that we put there with like fun cat Lance updates and whatnot and some shorts. But the book is available in the podcast description if you'd like to purchase it alongside of Highland's art projects that are extremely fun and you should check them out. Specifically a new exhibit that's coming soon.
That might have been inspired when I was wearing the 3-Wolf Moon t-shirt.
It just really manifested.
No.
Well, with that, guys, we appreciate you watching. We appreciate you listening, and we'll see you in the next one.